They never expected you to walk away. That's the moment everything changed. It wasn't the fights. It wasn't the cold silences. It wasn't even the disrespect. No. What broke them, what shook them to their core was your silence when you left. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You didn't try to fix what was already shattered. You just let go. And that's when they started to fall. Men fall harder for the women who walk away because they never believed she would. They mistook her kindness for weakness, her patience for permission, and her love for dependence. But the moment she chose herself, the game flipped. And suddenly, everything he thought he understood about her, about love, about power, crumbled. Because the woman who can walk away is the woman who owns herself. When a woman walks away, it's easy to misunderstand her. Some see her as cold, others call her heartless, but the truth runs deeper than most can grasp, because walking away is not a sign of weakness. It is the loudest, clearest declaration of strength. It takes immeasurable courage to leave someone you once loved, to release a bond you hoped would last, to choose yourself after years of choosing them. And yet, that's exactly what a strong woman does. She doesn't walk away because she stopped loving. She walks away because she finally started loving herself more. She doesn't let go to hurt him. She lets go because holding on is hurting her. She's not bitter. She's not out for revenge. She's done begging to be seen. She's done explaining her value. And when that moment comes, when she finally rises from the pain and decides that enough is enough, it is one of the most powerful turning points of her life. Most people confuse endurance with weakness. They think that because she was patient, she was dependent. Because she forgave, she was desperate. But it was the opposite all along. That forgiveness came from a heart that still had hope. That patience came from a soul that believed in the potential of the relationship. But even the kindest hearts have limits. Even the strongest women get tired. And when a woman hits her emotional limit, she doesn't scream. She doesn't throw tantrums. She simply detaches. That moment of detachment, silent, firm, and final, is what shocks people. It's what makes them realize that she was serious all along, that her love was real, that her loyalty was rare. And when she decides to leave, it's because she knows staying would be betraying herself. And here's the part they never expect. She doesn't look back. Walking away is never impulsive. It is the result of 1,000 small heartbreaks, a buildup of disappointments, a collection of ignored efforts and silenced emotions. It's not that she gave up too soon. It's that she gave her all until she had nothing left. And in that moment, when she finally chooses herself, it's not weakness. It's the highest form of self-respect. She walks away with her head high, her heart guarded, and her spirit intact. Because what she loses in that moment is nothing compared to what she regains: her dignity, her peace, her freedom. She stops waiting to be chosen and starts choosing herself. She stops looking for validation and starts building herself from within. And that shift, that inner transformation, is unstoppable. People often think strength looks like holding on. But true strength is in knowing when to let go, to release the familiar, to leave behind what no longer serves you, and to step into the unknown with nothing but faith in yourself. That is not weakness. That is warrior-level strength. Because it's easy to stay, it's easy to settle, it's easy to accept crumbs and call it love. But it takes real power to say, I deserve more. It takes real confidence to walk away from something that's no longer aligned with your value. And that's why walking away is never a failure. It's a breakthrough. A woman who walks away isn't broken. She's awakening. She's rising. She's healing. She's rewriting her story, not as a victim, but as the hero. And when she does that, when she makes that brave decision to let go, she steps into a version of herself that no one can take away from her. Men don't fall in love when they have her. They fall in love when she's gone. That's the irony. That's the heartbreak. That's the truth nobody wants to admit. While she was there, texting first, showing up, giving more, waiting patiently, he took her for granted. He assumed she'd always be around, that her forgiveness had no limit, that her heart would never stop hoping. He thought he had time. He thought she'd always stay. But the moment she walked away, the illusion shattered. Suddenly, the attention he used to ignore became a silence he couldn't escape. The texts stopped coming. Her voice disappeared. Her energy, once warm and consistent, went cold. And that's when he started to feel something deeper than he ever expected. Loss. Not the surface-level regret that fades with distraction, but a gut-wrenching, mind-haunting, soul-crushing loss that lingers in quiet moments. You see, he didn't fall for her while she was pouring into him. He fell for her when she took everything back. He fell when he had no more access, when her light was no longer his to bask in, when her comfort was no longer his safety net, when her love was no longer his privilege. That's when he started to feel everything he once dismissed. Every memory, every moment, every act of grace she gave him that he didn't deserve. Because men often need absence to understand presence. They need silence to appreciate the sound of her laughter. They need distance to recognize the closeness they once took for granted. And when she's no longer around to answer his calls, to laugh at his jokes, to love him through his flaws, he begins to fall harder than she ever did. Because now he's left with himself, with his patterns, with the consequences of thinking she'd never leave. Her departure becomes the mirror he can't avoid. It forces him to see what he overlooked, what he dismissed, what he damaged. He starts replaying conversations, remembering how she loved him when he didn't deserve it, how she stayed when he pushed her away, how she tried to communicate when he shut down. And those memories don't fade, they haunt. Because this time, there's no fixing it. No more chances. Bill Open Door. He might date other women, he might post pictures, he might pretend he's moved on, but deep down, he knows she was different. She was rare, and he lost her, not because she wasn't good enough, but because he didn't recognize what he had when it mattered. And that truth cuts deeper than he expected. When she was there, he was numb, comfortable, lazy. Now that she's gone, every detail matters. Her scent, her laugh, her silence, her strength. He remembers how she stood by him, how she defended him, how she believed in him when no one else did. And now he falls, not into someone else's arms, but into a spiral of what ifs, into a flood of realizations that came too late. And the harder part, he knows she won't come back because the woman who finally lets go doesn't look back. Not because she's bitter, but because she's healed. And that healing makes her untouchable. She's no longer the same woman he once knew. She's elevated. And that elevation is what makes him fall even harder. He thought he had the upper hand. He thought she needed him. He thought her presence was permanent. But when she left, calmly, finally, and completely, he learned the truth. She was the one holding everything together. She was the one choosing love daily. She was the one who saw something in him he couldn't see in himself. And now he's left falling for the version of her that's no longer available, for the love he didn't nurture, for the woman he didn't fight for. There is something unshakably powerful about a woman who knows her worth. She doesn't need anyone to remind her. She doesn't need constant reassurance. Her confidence doesn't come from how many compliments she receives or how many people want her. It comes from within. And that self-love makes her magnetic. Men are drawn to her, not because she's trying to impress them, but because she's already impressed with who she is. She doesn't perform. She doesn't compete. She simply shows up as herself, and that authenticity cannot be faked, duplicated, or replaced. A woman who loves herself doesn't beg for attention. She doesn't chase love because she is love. She's already full, whole, complete. She's not looking to be completed by a man. She's looking to be met at her level. And that energy is rare. In a world where so many shrink themselves just to be accepted, a woman who stands tall in her power becomes unforgettable. She's not afraid to be alone because her solitude is peaceful. She's not afraid to lose someone because her worth doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from knowing she is the choice. This kind of self-assurance creates a different dynamic in relationships. Men feel it. They may not always be able to explain it, but they sense it. She's not playing games. She's not desperate. She doesn't manipulate or beg for love. And because of that, she creates a space of high value. A man either rises to meet her there or gets left behind. She doesn't tolerate inconsistency. She doesn't entertain disrespect. She's not harsh or cold. She simply holds a standard. And that standard is not up for negotiation. Men fall for women like this harder than they expect, because the more he realizes she doesn't need him, the more he wants to be needed by her. Not out of pride, but because it challenges him. It pushes him to grow. It shows him a reflection of what's possible. He sees in her a woman who's not only strong, but nurturing, not only independent, but emotionally intelligent, not only confident, but kind. That balance is rare, and it can't be faked. The woman who loves herself radiates from the inside out. She walks differently, talks differently, chooses differently. She doesn't stay where she's not appreciated. She doesn't force connections. She doesn't chase closure. She is the closure. When she enters a room, her energy shifts it. When she speaks, people listen, not because she's loud, but because her presence is rooted in truth. That truth gives her peace, and peace is the most attractive energy there is. A man might not realize it at first. He might mistake her independence for indifference, but in time he learns this woman is different. She doesn't fear loss because she trusts in what she brings to the table, and that trust is what makes her irreplaceable. He can date other women, but the experience won't be the same. They won't reflect the same depth. They won't inspire him to level up the way she did, because she didn't just offer love, she offered growth. When a woman deeply loves herself, she changes the game. She doesn't demand respect, she embodies it. She doesn't settle for being someone's option because she knows she's a prize. And once a man experiences that kind of energy, it marks him. It lingers. Even if they part ways, she remains unforgettable, not because of what she did for him, but because of who she was while doing it. And that kind of woman, solid, grounded, glowing in her own light, is the kind that men fall hardest for. There's a different kind of power in silence. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself, but it speaks volumes. When a woman chooses to walk away without a dramatic exit, without shouting her worth or demanding explanations, she makes a lasting impression. The quiet goodbye leaves the deepest impact because it's not fueled by emotion, it's fueled by clarity. And when she walks away with calm conviction, it says more than 1,000 arguments ever could. Men are often used to the noise, the crying, the pleading, the begging to be understood, the back and forth that gives them time to react, to manipulate, to delay. But when a woman decides that she's done and she doesn't explain why, it triggers something deeper. It's not confusion, it's realization. Her absence becomes a mirror. Her silence becomes a weight, because now he's not distracted by arguments or emotional outbursts. He's sitting with himself, with his decisions, with her absence. And that is when the truth begins to settle in. A quiet exit is not about revenge. It's about respect for herself. She doesn't need to yell. She doesn't need to prove how badly she was hurt. Her distance makes it obvious. Her emotional detachment shows that she no longer needs validation, that she's no longer seeking closure, because she already gave herself the answers. She already accepted that what she stayed for no longer exists. And when she leaves in silence, she sends a clear message. You are no longer worth my energy. That hits differently. It stings more. It lingers because men are wired to respond to challenge, to engage with resistance. But when she offers neither, when she simply lets go, he loses the game before he even realizes it started. He might have expected a fight, a meltdown, one last chance to regain control, but she gave him none. She walked away with dignity, and that leaves a mark that time doesn't erase. There's nothing more haunting than the woman who loved you deeply, saw your potential, stood by you when it was hard, and then left without a word. She doesn't burn bridges. She doesn't send bitter texts. She just disappears, not out of spite, but because she's already said everything that needed to be said through her actions, through her consistency, through her patience. And once that patience runs out, her silence is the final statement. Men remember the quiet exits longer than the loud ones. The emotional explosions can be blamed on drama or overreacting, but silence, that can't be dismissed. That stays. It plays in their mind late at night. They begin to wonder what she's thinking, what she's doing, who she's with, because they're no longer in the loop. They're no longer the center of her attention. And not knowing becomes a torment. That silence grows louder with time. When a woman doesn't try to prove her point, when she doesn't try to convince him of her worth, she instantly raises her value. She shows that her love was a gift, not an obligation, that her presence was a choice, not a dependence. And that shift from trying to be understood to simply choosing herself creates an undeniable shift in the dynamic. Suddenly, she becomes the one with the power, the one he can't read, the one who didn't just leave, but elevated. She doesn't look back. She doesn't explain herself. She lets him sit in the silence and feel what it means to lose a woman who refused to fight for a spot in someone else's life. Her exit is clean, her conscience is clear, and her absence is louder than any goodbyes she could have spoken. Because in the end, it's not the screaming that men remember. It's the silence they never expected. Regret is a powerful emotion, and it hits hardest when it's tied to someone who was once within reach. When a woman who gave her all finally walks away, it doesn't register at first. A man may carry on with his life, convinced she'll come back, certain that she still needs him. He may convince himself that she's just being emotional or trying to teach him a lesson. But as time passes and she doesn't return, something shifts. He starts to feel the emptiness she left behind. And it's then when her presence turns into a memory that regret begins to settle in. He remembers the little things, how she checked in on him when no one else did, how she encouraged his dreams, how she saw potential in him that he didn't even see in himself. At the time, he shrugged it off. He took it for granted. He assumed that love was ordinary, that her loyalty was expected. But in her absence, he realizes it wasn't. It was rare, and he let it slip away. Men often don't grasp the depth of a woman's love until it's gone. When she was there, always available, always supportive, her presence was something he relied on without thinking. She was the emotional safety net he never had to ask for. She forgave when others wouldn't. She stayed when others left. She believed when others doubted. But the more she gave, the less he valued it. And now that it's gone, he begins to feel the weight of everything he dismissed. The regret doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slowly, like a whisper at first. A song she used to love playing in the background, a scent that reminds him of her, a place they used to go together. At first, he tries to shake it off, but it keeps coming back. The realization that he had someone extraordinary and failed to recognize it becomes harder to ignore. And it begins to haunt him, not because she left, but because she left after giving everything. He starts to reflect on the moments he didn't say thank you, the times he shut her down when she tried to talk, the times he chose ego over empathy. He replays the scenes in his mind, trying to figure out where it all went wrong, and slowly the truth settles in. She didn't leave because she stopped loving him. She left because she got tired of proving her love to someone who wasn't ready to receive it. That kind of regret cuts deep because it's not about missing someone who was good. It's about realizing he lost someone who was irreplaceable. He sees that no matter how many new people he meets, no one else brings the same energy, the same peace, the same loyalty. What she gave came from a place of depth and sincerity. And he didn't match it. He didn't meet her halfway. And now the silence she left behind echoes louder than her words ever did. He may even try to fix it, reach out, say the right things, but the timing is off because the woman who walks away after giving her best usually doesn't come back. Not out of pride, but because she's finally learned her worth. She realizes that love shouldn't be that hard, that one-sided, that draining. And now that she's moved on, not just physically, but emotionally, there's no space left for what she had to beg for before. And so the regret remains with him. It becomes a part of his story, a reminder of what happens when you take real love for granted, when you assume someone will always be there, when you don't protect what you once prayed for. And that regret, unlike the woman he lost, doesn't leave. It stays. The woman who grows without him is the woman who wins. Not because she moved on faster, not because she found someone new, but because she chose to become better instead of becoming bitter. When she finally let go of trying to fix what was broken, she redirected all that energy inward. She stopped trying to change him and instead began to change herself. Not to prove anything to him, but to finally honor the parts of her that she had long ignored in the name of love. And that decision to evolve without him is what separates her from the rest. While he may have expected her to fall apart, to wait for him to break under the weight of the separation, she did the opposite. She stood up, she looked in the mirror and faced the truth. She had been pouring into someone who wasn't pouring back. She had been shrinking to fit into a space that wasn't built for her. And in that moment of painful clarity, she chose to rise quietly, privately, fully. And that transformation is something no one can take from her. Conclusion. She didn't become bitter. She became focused. She took the tears, the disappointment, the silence, and turned it into fuel. She read the books, said the prayers, hit the gym, built her career, created boundaries. She started loving herself in ways she once reserved for him. And that shift, subtle at first, became unstoppable. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it looks like smiling again for no reason. Sometimes it sounds like laughter returning to a room that used to be heavy. Sometimes it feels like peace in the places where anxiety used to live. She didn't need to announce it to the world. Her energy made the announcement for her. People noticed. He noticed. And that's when the tables turned. Because while she was healing, he was reminiscing. While she was building, he was comparing. While she was becoming, he was regretting. And the more she stepped into her power, the more he realized how much he lost. Not just the relationship, but the access, the loyalty, the deep emotional support. The woman who once would have done anything for him had now become the woman who wouldn't even reply. And it wasn't because she hated him. It was because she outgrew him. That's what hurts the most. Not that she left, but that she leveled up without him. She did the work. She faced the pain. She didn't seek temporary relief and distractions. She sat with the discomfort and came out stronger on the other side. And now her energy no longer matches his. Her vision is bigger. Her spirit is lighter. She no longer finds comfort in chaos. She no longer accepts less than what she deserved. And now, even if he wanted to return, he wouldn't recognize the woman she's become. Because the version of her that stayed in a one-sided relationship is gone. In her place stands a woman who understands her worth, who protects her peace, who doesn't entertain people who are unsure about her. She doesn't wait for closure. She doesn't ask why. She doesn't replay the past. She simply moves forward with grace, confidence, and a quiet kind of power that makes her unforgettable. And that is the real victory. Not in making him miss her, but in never needing him to. Because the growth she found without him gave her everything she thought she needed from him. And now her life speaks for itself. Her healing became her revenge. Her peace became her glow. Her growth became her story.